it's hard to ruin a great brand, right? Like Donald Sterling was a bad human, but that was never a great brand, right? Robert Sarver did all he could to ruin the Suns, but it wasn't a huge national brand. 70s, 80s, 90s, Washington was the Packers. I mean, they were, when I was a kid growing up, they were the franchise after Dallas and the Steelers.
Exactly.
So a lot of people felt, despite the harassment charges, that the owners would support Dan Snyder, and he would just figure out a way, despite bad PR, to hang around. Any insight to what possibly happened?
Well, I think one thing that happened is that one of his own publicly started talking about maybe kicking him out. And I know Jim Irsay really, really well. I admire his conviction. He goes against the grain at times. It's possible Jim Irsay just spoke honestly and from his heart. It's also possible that Jim Irsay had some conversations with other owners who said, you know what? We agree with you. And if you say that, you'd have our at least quiet support. But that was not insignificant when Jim Irsay came out publicly and said, yeah, I don't know, maybe we should get rid of this guy. And Jim Irsay has 3 daughters. He's very close to him. He didn't like the way that the allegations against Dan Snyder were sullying NFL owners and the league. Prior to that, it had been thought, well, a lot of owners have skeletons, and trust me, I worked for them for 8 years. Trust me, they do. Whole other podcast topic, but a lot of owners have skeletons, and a lot of owners, more charitably, could have people come out of the woodwork to accuse them of things that maybe aren't totally accurate, but they didn't want to open that can of worms where, okay, if accusations happen, it sets the stage for these franchises they want to be generational, that while we've been on this podcast, each one has appreciated another $100,000 or something. They didn't want to open that can of worms. And remember, Jerry Richardson faced some pretty serious allegations, just passed away recently. That problem got solved because he was older and he was just done. He was like, you know what, fine, I'm out. And the NFL owners didn't have to deal with it. The NBA solved the problem twice by throwing money at the problem. Essentially, having the balls, Adam Silver, on his first day on the job to say, you're out, Donald Sterling, whether it's constitutional or not. And then a giant offer from Steve Ballmer and again with the Suns, that happened with Sarver. So, this is a little bit of all of that. Daniel Snyder wasn't going to make it easy and walk away. But I think once he heard Jim Irsay say that, he realized, man, something has turned.
Now, the next least popular owner is Jimmy Haslam, who infuriated owners for another reason. An egregiously bad, fully guaranteed contract to Deshaun Watson. So if we had a ranking of least popular owners among other billionaire owners, Haslam now is number 1, right?
Well, that's so cool that you broached that, because I used to do owner rankings. As far as I know, I'm the only one who's ever done it.
I remember.
I did them annually for SI.com and then Yahoo. And of course, they were my rankings about who I thought were doing the best jobs of owning teams. But that actually has my wheels spinning. What about an insighty owner rankings of which owners are the most hated among the other owners? And, you bring up a good point, but I think in the end, that frustrated other owners that Jimmy Haslam did that, because now we got to deal with this guaranteed contract stuff. And other owners didn't like it when David Tepper came in and gave Matt Rule, sounds weird in retrospect, but gave Matt Rule all that money because it messed up the coaching contract market. But I feel like owners get over that stuff, eventually. But what owners can't get over? Allegations, if proven, and maybe we'll never know, that one owner, Daniel Snyder, allegedly cooked the books and screwed them out of their share of the gate.
Yeah.
That's less forgivable, for the billionaire set. So, Yeah, they tend to stick together. They tend to not want to set precedents like, oh, a couple of accusations could knock X owner out of the league and make them lose this incredible investment. But, Daniel Snyder put them through the ringer in a lot of ways. And Irsay, possibly knowing that he spoke for a larger contingent, was kind of like, okay, this is a nightmare. And look, if the Colts play the Commanders, if they're still called that, at the FedEx Field or a new stadium, and Jim Irsay takes the field pregame to go schmooze, he should get like an adoring celebration and a prolonged ovation from those Washington fans for a huge, huge assist on getting Daniel Snyder the F out, because heaven knows it's been long coming and it's tough to shed any tears.
By the way, there's usually about at any given time about 7 or 8 great quarterbacks in the NFL, 7 or 8 great coaches in the NFL, and 7 and 8 great GMs in the league. I'd argue there are not 7 or 8 great owners. I'm dead serious.
Yeah, I mean, that's, again, like doing the rankings all those years, I really had to think about it. I'll say it a different way. You would think that the people who own NFL teams, because they've succeeded or been born into success, but the ones who succeeded, you'd think they're competitive people, and now they're in the public eye. You'd think 32 people would be going after it. I'll do anything to win. Nah, it's a much, much, much smaller number. There's a large segment of ownership that's like, you know what? Franchise is appreciating. We're guaranteed a profit simply from the TV deals alone. And if we win, cool. If we win once in a while, great. If we win more than once in a while, right on. Let's ride that wave. But they're not living and breathing in it. So when I did the rankings, the people who lived and breathed it aggressively tried to generate revenue and then aggressively tried to look for ways to spend that revenue, either through salary cap manipulation or non-cap expenditures like coaches. I put very high, which is paradoxically, weirdly, in my very first owner rankings, I had Daniel Snyder crazy high because my thought was, yeah, he's got terrible people skills. He does things to undermine his coach and GM by butting up to players, but at least he's trying really hard to get money and use that money to win. And he really wanted to win. He fell more and more as the rankings went on. And unfortunately, the rankings didn't go on long enough for him to really, really, go to his rightful place. But and I just want to give a very brief history lesson for you non-old people. And you'll remember some of this, Colin. You probably weren't paying as close of attention. But the old NFL, I called them Politburo bosses. You had all these families that kind of had teams, and they were like, we're going to share everything. We're just going to share the revenue from the TV deals. We're going to share revenue from the gate. We're going to split it up, and we're all going to do things equally. And, as lefty as I can get sometimes, when it comes to NFL economics, I'm very like invisible hand, free market. And I sided with the Eddie DeBartolos and the Jerry Joneses who shook things up and said, wait a minute, why are we sitting around, taking our guaranteed money and not trying to aggressively generate revenue? We're these incredibly valuable franchises. Let's get after it. And in turn, they tried to turn that into ways to get ahead on the field, and to the point where, we got to create a salary cap to control. So the NFL has a lot of communist, socialist properties. They share money. They have a worst shall be first scheduling formula. They have a worst shall be first draft formula. And I could go on and on and on about, central control and all that. But, there's still some old guard owners who subscribe to that model. And I will give it to Daniel Snyder that he was not one of those.
The NBA playoffs are upon us. 20 teams get in, all trying to get that one crown. For last-minute amazing deals to watch your favorite NBA team. It can be the Warriors, it could be the Kings, it could be the Sixers, it could be the Bucks. To get great last-minute deals on amazing tickets, check out Game Time, the fastest-growing ticketing app in the United States. It's called Game Time. It doesn't stop, by the way, with the NBA. They've got NHL tickets, Major League Baseball tickets. By the way, those Major League Baseball games, they last 30 minutes less, so get there early. They've also got concerts and comedy shows. They've got everything at Game Time. Download the Game Time app, and the redeem code is Colin, Colin. $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Download the Game Time app, enter the code Colin, Colin, for $20 off. Here we go. NBA playoffs, baseball season just starting here in April, NHL as well. No matter where you live, get out, have some fun this week and this year. Download the Game Time app, last-minute ticket deals, lowest prices guaranteed. So I want to talk about the Niners because you have such in-depth, you have tentacles all over that organization. And by the way, increasingly when I follow your Twitter feed, all your critics are lightening up because you've been right so many times and broken so many stories. They're like, Silver, I hate. Whatever. What's the latest news? So the Trey Lance stuff is interesting. I was talking to Jordan Palmer the other day, and he's like, if you look at the offense San Francisco runs, a lot of these plays are schemed to succeed. Sam Darnold's going to have the best protection, the best weapons, the best coach he's ever had. And we know he's a big, strong, athletic kid and coachable and hardworking. He's just not accurate enough. But this system makes you more accurate. Don't be shocked if Jimmy Garoppolo's not nearly as good with the Raiders as he was with the Niners. So Brock Purdy, I think the franchise likes a lot, and Sam Darnold are in-house. We all know at some point, and I think the Niners are, and even some of the sound bites and some of the quotes from your articles, they're going to move off something if they missed. They're not going to try to double down on wrong. Let's just be honest. Could Trey Lance be moved before the season?
He could, but I believe that Brock Purdy's injury and the uncertainty that still surrounds his recovery made that much, much less likely. Before the playoffs, I wrote and reported, it's over. Brock Purdy's the guy, because they want to go with this model where they pay everybody and have the quarterback on the rookie deal. Yeah, that's what trading for that pick was about. That's what drafting Lance was supposed to be about. And with Purdy, the model's even better. You're not even allowed to reopen his contract for 2 more years. It's even cheaper than Trey Lance's deal. And he showed Kyle Shanahan, people are like, well, how can you say Purdy? I'm like, I'm not saying it. Kyle believes it based on what he saw from Purdy. He's the guy. So going into that Philly game for the conference championship, the only thing that could have derailed that plan was what happened. If Brock Purdy had broken his leg, it would have been brutal and it would have hurt and it would have sucked, but they would have been like, fine, he'll come back. Because of what happened to his throwing elbow, you're not totally sure. A, you're not sure when, and B, you're still not positive that it's going to be like it was before. And I have PTSD because a lot of my Twitter critics probably weren't born when I was right about the Joe Montana, Steve Young stuff, but Joe Montana missed basically 2 seasons after elbow surgeries. And he did come back after that and have 2 really, really good years with the Chiefs. But nothing is promised. And so I think because of that, it gives them an opening to say, look, we knew Lance was going to take a while to develop because he was raw. It's taken longer. It didn't work when we just handed it to him last year. We ended up having to bring Garoppolo back as a hedge and ultimately turn to Purdy. But maybe we can develop him and use this offseason to get him some more reps. And I don't know if this offense makes you more accurate, because you're going to have to be more accurate or consistently accurate than Trey Lance was before he got hurt last year. But, there's still a lot of things to potentially like about him. So I believe what they'll do is they'll say, look, Purdy's not going to be here until at least the start of the season, maybe longer. We're going to split reps between Lance and Darnold, see how they react, see what we have. basically, if one of them has to start the opener, it's the guy we think gives us the best chance to win. And I think one thing that people are missing here is that when they say, well, they're going to trade Trey Lance and admit their mistake. Yeah, eventually they're going to admit their mistake if it was a mistake, but they're not fielding offers to like get back in the first round for Trey Lance. And I know it only takes one team, but if they trade Trey Lance now, I think it's for a 3 or something. And so I just don't think you have urgency to. You don't know about Purdy. You'd like another option. You'd like to see if you could develop him more because you do have a lot invested in him. You're not paying him a lot, and you can always move him, a year from now if it goes the way you want it to with Purdy, and possibly if it does with Darnold. So I think if someone called him and said, we will give you a 2, like something they thought was more than
a 2 they take in a second.
I think if someone calls and says, we'll give you a 3 for Trey Lance, they go, a 3. Well, let's see. We currently have 96 picks in the third round. Not all these guys are going to make our team. I mean, I just don't think, I think I'd rather have a chance to, develop them this offseason. Maybe they will. I don't even think they'll necessarily get offered a 3 right now. But listen, if he goes out and looks good in the preseason and possibly early in the season, they could get a lot more for him a year from now.
So you went to Cal, Aaron Rodgers did, but Aaron Rodgers has gotten a little bit more indifferent and critical of the media over the last several years. And I said this on the show today. There's a lot of reports now that this thing won't get done, Jets and Packers, until after the draft. So Green Bay does have a need at tight end that's fairly urgent. They'll probably draft a tight end in the first round. They need another receiver, pretty thin and young at receiver. They'll go that in the second round. But the roster is good. Not great, but it's good. It's not San Francisco. It's not Philadelphia. I don't think it's as good maybe as a Buffalo or the top teams in the AFC. But it's a good roster. I believe that Aaron, if he just came out and just said, guys, I'm in for 2 years minimum, it would be over. Then the Jets would be like, okay, we know it, you know it. But I said this today, and I've been critical of Aaron, but Aaron's too smart to not know that once you take the most money, you won't have the best roster. He took the money. He's too smart to think, 2 rookie receivers. I'm not going to work with them in the offseason. That'll work great. Yeah. I honestly think that we all make choices on what matters to us. You have a great family, great friends in your career. You have prioritized those, and they're all strong. Some people care about their career. Some people care about social life. Some want less stress. Aaron's made a decision, in my opinion, and winning second. What he wants is control over the media, over situations, over the Packers, that he could end all this bullshit. He can end the drama, Mike, if he just said, 2 years I'm in, I'll think about a third. Why doesn't he do that?
Well, first of all, I've also made some bad decisions in terms of priorities, specifically continuing to root for Cal, which is... I joke. But, I charitably for Aaron, I would say this. He said he was thinking about retiring, very seriously recently. That's what we'll take him at his word. I think it's better not to say I'm in for 2 years if you're not sure that you are. And sure, he could say I'm in for 2 years and, by December be like, oh my, this is terrible. I'm out of here. But maybe it's to his credit that he's not sure he's in for 2 years. And listen, I know from talking to my sources that the Jets understand that there's a scenario where he only plays one, and they are not telling the Packers, sorry, man, we take it or leave it. What they're saying to the Packers is, look, man, if he comes and he plays 1 year and we give up all this, that seems kind of skewed. Is there a mechanism in this trade where if that happens, we get something back after he retires? And I think that's, they consider that a reasonable request. So yeah, Aaron can end that if he just said I'm in for 2, but maybe it's to Aaron's credit that he's not saying that because he's just not sure.
Your guess how long he would play with the Jets? I think it's 2. Aaron's career, first year as a starter in Green Bay, first year with Hackett, it has taken him usually, because I've been told he's not a big grinder in the offseason like a Brady, a Peyton, or a Russell Wilson, that Aaron's second year is usually the year he pops. Well, I don't think he wants to do a one walk off and be average. I think he wants to, and it's good for his legacy. It's good for money. It's good. I think he wants to have a viable year. And I don't think his first year, frankly, is going to be great.
But he doesn't consider this year one. First of all, year one with Hackett and LaFleur was a whole new scheme. And that, I believe, that was a legitimate adjustment. By the way, they got to the NFC Championship game. He did not have a great statistical year, but they went 13-3 and got to the NFC Championship game. But I think the way that he and the Jets are thinking of this is essentially year 4 after a gap, because it's Hackett and because it's that offense. And it's not like Hackett plus LaFleur, by the way. It's Hackett plus Saleh, who's like, you run the offense. I'll keep an eye on my specialty, which is defense. So if you believe that Aaron and Hackett are now resuming a very fruitful partnership that won consecutive MVPs their next 2 years together, and it's the Jets receivers and other players who are going to have to adjust to that, Aaron may not think Aaron probably thinks I'm going to just be rolling from the get-go. But going back to what you said earlier, just as he made a decision not to work with the new receivers a year ago, when clearly, as Patrick Mahomes could tell you, that was an important thing to do for winning, I think that's what you need to look at. If this trade doesn't get done draft weekend, you will probably hear, I suspect, hey, it turns out Aaron Rodgers and Garrett Wilson and Alan Lazard and all those Jets targets are working out in LA or somewhere, and because there's nothing to stop them. You can't say he's tampering, and you can't say Garrett Wilson's tampering. So I think it is important to hit the ground running in year one, and that'll be the way we know. If there's no trade right away or in the next couple weeks, I would expect we'll see him and those guys for the Jets starting to work together.